The city glowed beneath a blanket of late summer humidity, every skyscraper reflecting ribbons of gold and blue across the Chicago River. Friday evenings usually belonged to tourists, business dinners, and wedding celebrations. At the Grand Bennett Hotel, however, every detail was expected to feel effortless, even though hundreds of people worked behind the scenes to create that illusion. Tomorrow would be the hotel's most anticipated wedding of the year. Sophia Bennett's wedding. Ironically, almost no one inside the ballroom knew that the elegant bride, whose name-decorated crystal welcome displays, was also the quiet owner of the building itself. To the public, Sophia was simply the daughter of the Bennett family, a wealthy heiress who preferred privacy over magazine covers. Within the company, only a handful of executives and attorneys knew the truth. 3 years earlier, her grandfather had quietly transferred ownership of the Grand Bennett Hotel into her trust. Since then, Sophia had overseen every renovation, every staffing decision, every investment without ever attaching her name to the property. She preferred respect earned in silence. At 32, Sophia walked through the marble lobby wearing tailored navy slacks, a cream silk blouse, and comfortable flats instead of designer heels. Her engagement ring caught the warm light as she greeted employees by name. "Everything all set for tomorrow?" she asked. "We've finished the floral installation," said Emily Torres, the banquet manager, holding a tablet against her chest. The pianist confirmed his rehearsal. "The guest suites are stocked. The bridal lounge is exactly as you requested." Sophia smiled gently. "Thank you. I know everyone's worked late this week." Emily hesitated. "You should be home resting." Sophia laughed softly. "I will, eventually." She had spent years building a reputation for calm professionalism. Even tonight, with less than 16 hours before her wedding, she looked more like an executive inspecting quarterly operations than a nervous bride. After checking the ballroom one final time, she wandered through rows of white roses arranged beneath towering crystal chandeliers. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. She imagined herself walking down the aisle. Ryan would be waiting. The guests would stand. Her father would squeeze her hand before letting go. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to believe in the future she had carefully built. A home. Children. Quiet Sunday mornings. Growing old beside someone she trusted. Ryan had promised all of it. Meanwhile, several floors above, laughter echoed from the hotel's private penthouse lounge. Ryan Caldwell's bachelor party had begun hours earlier. The suite overlooked the glittering skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. Empty whiskey glasses littered the marble countertop while music pulsed softly from hidden speakers. Ryan leaned comfortably into a leather sofa, his tie already hanging loose around his neck. His college friends surrounded him. "To the groom!" someone shouted. Glasses clinked. Ryan grinned. "To surviving marriage." Everyone laughed. Downstairs, Sophia entered the hotel's security operations office. Most owners never visited this room. Sophia visited it often. Rows of monitors displayed every hallway, entrance, elevator, ballroom, loading dock, and emergency exit. It wasn't about spying on guests, it was about protecting them. "Evening, Miss Bennett," said Marcus Green, the head of hotel security. He was one of the few people aware of her ownership. "Everything quiet?" she asked. Marcus nodded. "So far. Just the bachelor party upstairs." Sophia smiled. "I figured." Marcus stood from his chair. "I'm grabbing coffee. Call if you need anything." After he left, Sophia sat before the monitor wall. She reviewed loading entrances, kitchen deliveries, VIP arrivals, emergency exits. Routine. Comfortingly routine. Then one monitor caught her attention. Penthouse lounge. Ryan's party. She almost switched away. Almost. Instead, she paused. Mostly because she wanted to smile at seeing him enjoying his last evening before they became husband and wife. The camera had no audio by default, but the penthouse conference system had temporarily synchronized with hotel monitoring after technicians tested tomorrow's livestream equipment. A notification blinked. "Conference audio connected." Sophia frowned. "That's strange." She reached toward the keyboard to disconnect it. Then Ryan's voice drifted through the speakers. "I'm telling you, it's the smartest decision I've ever made." She froze. One of his friends laughed. You mean proposing? Ryan lifted his whiskey. No. More laughter. Marrying Sophia. Sophia smiled instinctively. Until Ryan continued. You guys think I fell in love? He burst into laughter. The room exploded with it. Sophia's fingers slowly left the keyboard. Ryan shook his head. Come on. Another friend leaned forward. So why her? Ryan swirled the whiskey in his glass. You've seen the Bennett family. Someone whistled. Old money. Exactly. Ryan grinned. They've got connections everywhere. Another man added. And the trust fund. Ryan pointed at him. Bingo. Sophia stopped breathing. Ryan leaned back comfortably. My company's been bleeding cash for 18 months. So this wedding. Ryan raised his glass again. Is basically my bailout. The laughter became louder. Someone slapped the coffee table. Damn. Ryan shrugged casually. What? You think investors hand out miracles? Another voice asked carefully. But do you actually love her? For the first time all evening, Ryan looked genuinely amused. Love? He laughed harder than before. I like Sophia. He paused deliberately. She's kind. She's smart. She's beautiful. He took another drink. But love? Ryan smirked. I can't believe I'm stuck with her for life. The words landed like shattered glass. Inside the security office, silence swallowed everything except Ryan's voice. Sophia stared at the screen. She waited. Waited for someone to say it was a joke. Waited for Ryan to smile and admit he didn't mean it. Instead, one friend nudged him. So what about Amber? Ryan's grin widened. Oh, Amber knows exactly what this is. Sophia blinked. Amber? The unfamiliar name echoed inside her mind. Ryan lowered his voice slightly. I'm not giving her up. A chorus of whistles filled the room. You serious? Ryan nodded without hesitation. Wedding Saturday. He lifted his glass one final time. Capri next month. His friends erupted into cheers. To married life. Ryan laughed. No. He smirked. To having the best of both worlds. Sophia didn't move. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark monitor. The engagement ring on her finger suddenly felt heavier than gold. Far heavier than forever. And without realizing it, she reached for the security console. Not to turn the recording off, but to press Save Archive. The blinking red light beside the security monitor changed from live to archived. The recording was now permanently stored on the hotel's encrypted server. Sophia Bennett didn't realize she had been holding her breath until her lungs finally demanded air. She inhaled slowly, deliberately, refusing to let panic dictate her next move. On the screen, Ryan Caldwell's laughter continued as though nothing extraordinary had happened. To him, it hadn't. He believed he was surrounded by loyal friends inside a private penthouse suite. He believed the walls would keep his secrets. He believed tomorrow would unfold exactly as planned, with a smiling bride, a lavish ceremony, and access to a future secured by the Bennett family's wealth. He had no idea that the woman he had just humiliated was listening only a few floors below. Sophia's hand drifted to her engagement ring. A month earlier, Ryan had slipped it onto her finger beneath fireworks over Lake Michigan. You make me believe in forever, he had whispered. She remembered how sincerely he had looked into her eyes. Or perhaps she had only remembered the man she wanted him to be. The memory dissolved beneath another burst of laughter from the speakers. So, one of Ryan's college friends asked, how long have you been running this little balancing act? Ryan shrugged lazily. About a year. A year? Another man exclaimed. While planning a wedding? Ryan raised his glass. You make it sound complicated. It is complicated. No, Ryan replied with a grin. It's expensive. The room erupted again. Sophia's expression never changed. She reached for a legal notepad resting beside the keyboard and quietly began writing. 11:18 p.m. Ryan admits relationship with Amber ongoing. States engagement motivated by financial gain. Acknowledges company's financial distress. Her handwriting remained perfectly steady. Every sentence transformed heartbreak into evidence. Upstairs, another bottle of whiskey was opened. One of the guests leaned back against the bar. Does Sophia have any clue? Ryan actually looked offended by the question. Of course not. She trusts you that much? Ryan smirked. That's the thing about good people. He took another sip. They always think everyone else is good too. Several men chuckled. One of them hesitated before speaking again. I don't know, man. She seems decent. Ryan laughed. She's more than decent. So why marry her if you're miserable? Ryan looked toward the skyline beyond the glass. Because marriages between powerful families aren't about butterflies. They're about leverage. His voice carried an unsettling confidence. By this time next year, I'll have access to investors who wouldn't even return my calls today. Another friend nodded knowingly. The Bennett Network. Exactly. Ryan smiled. And once her family's trust starts backing my expansion, nobody's going to remember that my company nearly collapsed. Sophia lowered her eyes. It wasn't simply betrayal. It was premeditation. At 11:41 p.m., the elevator doors opened inside the penthouse corridor. A woman stepped out wearing a camel-colored trench coat over a black cocktail dress. Long chestnut hair. Designer heels. A confident smile. The hallway camera captured her face clearly. Sophia frowned. She had seen that woman before. Not socially. Professionally. Amber Collins. Ryan had introduced her months ago as an independent marketing consultant who occasionally worked with his company. Nothing more. The suite door opened before Amber could knock. Ryan himself greeted her. His face changed instantly. The polished fiance disappeared. A different man stood there. Relaxed. Hungry. Completely at ease. He wrapped one arm around Amber's waist and kissed her without hesitation. The room exploded into whistles and applause. Finally, someone shouted. Took you long enough. Amber laughed. I had to make sure nobody followed me. Ryan kissed her forehead. They won't. Sophia closed her eyes. Only for a second. When she opened them again, she pressed another key. Save camera 14. Amber slipped off her coat and accepted a glass of champagne. So, she teased, future husband. Ryan rolled his eyes dramatically. Don't remind me. She laughed. You'll survive. Barely. Amber leaned against him. So when do we leave? Ryan smiled. 3 weeks. For Capri? He nodded. Our little honeymoon. She raised an eyebrow. I thought you already had one scheduled. Ryan shrugged. I'll tell Sophia it's a business conference. Another wave of laughter spread across the room. Amber clinked her glass against his. I like the sound of that. Ryan looked completely untroubled. As long as I keep everyone happy, nobody loses. One of his friends muttered quietly, except your wife. Ryan answered without missing a beat. She'll never know. Downstairs, Sophia finally stood. The room suddenly felt smaller. Not because of grief. Because every new sentence revealed another layer beneath the lies. Ryan hadn't simply fallen out of love. He had built an entire future on deception. Marriage. Investment. Corporate influence. Affairs. False promises. Even tomorrow's vows had become part of a business strategy. She walked toward the office window overlooking Michigan Avenue. Traffic lights flickered below. A bride and groom climbed into a waiting limousine outside another hotel across the street. People applauded. Someone threw flower petals into the air. Life continued. Unaware, Sophia rested, one hand against the cool glass. A single tear gathered in the corner of her eye. It never fell. She wiped it away before it could. Cry later, she whispered to herself. If there's anything left to cry for. Returning to the console, she reviewed the recording timeline. Every file automatically contained metadata. Date, time, camera number, access log, digital authentication. Years of managing luxury hotels had taught her one critical lesson. Evidence mattered only if its integrity could never be questioned. She duplicated the recordings onto 2 encrypted drives. One remained inside the hotel's secure archive. The second she locked inside her personal safe. Then she picked up her phone. It was 12:07 a.m. She scrolled through her contacts before stopping at one name. Danielle Mercer. General Counsel. Trusted advisor. Friend of nearly 15 years. She pressed call. The phone rang twice. Daniel answered, his voice thick with sleep. Sophia? I'm sorry to wake you. A pause, then his tone sharpened. What's happened? Sophia looked once more at the frozen image of Ryan and Amber embracing beneath the penthouse lights. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm enough to surprise even herself. "I need you at the Grand Bennett. Now? Before sunrise." Another pause. "Is someone hurt?" "Not physically." Daniel sat upright on the other end. "What am I bringing?" Sophia answered without hesitation. "Your litigation team." Silence. Then, "I'll be there in 45 minutes. She ended the call. Outside the security office, the hotel remained wrapped in quiet elegance. Fresh orchids waited in crystal vases. The ballroom chandeliers shimmered. A white wedding dress hung untouched in the bridal suite upstairs. Everything was still prepared for a celebration. Only the bride now knew there would be no wedding. Not because her heart had been broken, but because, before dawn, she had already begun preparing a case. And by the time the sun rose over Chicago, Sophia Bennett would no longer be planning the happiest day of her life. She would be planning the day she refused to let it be stolen. Dawn arrived quietly over Chicago. The first rays of sunlight stretched across the glass towers surrounding the Grand Bennett Hotel, painting the skyline in pale shades of gold. From the outside, it looked like the beginning of a fairy tale. Delivery trucks unloaded fresh orchids. A string quartet rehearsed beneath the ballroom's soaring ceiling. Photographers polished camera lenses while florists adjusted white peonies one last time. Inside Suite 1801, a wedding gown waited. Handmade Italian lace. Long cathedral train. Pearl buttons sewn one by one. It rested on a mannequin beside floor-to-ceiling windows, untouched. The dress had taken 11 months to design. Sophia Bennett never looked at it. Instead, she stood before another mirror across the room. Her reflection wore a perfectly tailored ivory pantsuit, a silk blouse, a structured blazer, low nude heels. Her hair, originally scheduled to be styled into soft bridal curls, was instead pulled into a sleek low bun. Diamond earrings remained, but there was no veil, no bouquet, no trace of a bride preparing to walk toward forever. She looked like the chief executive officer of a global corporation. Because this morning, that was exactly who she intended to be. A soft knock interrupted the silence. "Come in." Daniel Mercer entered first, followed by two attorneys carrying leather portfolios. None of them commented on the wedding dress standing untouched in the corner. Daniel simply placed a thick folder on the table. "We've reviewed every recording." Sophia nodded. "And? They're authentic." He opened the folder. The surveillance system automatically timestamps every frame. Access logs confirm the recordings were generated during routine hotel security operations. Another attorney added, "The audio synchronization was created by yesterday's livestream equipment test. Everything appears to have been recorded lawfully under the hotel's operational monitoring policy." Sophia listened without emotion. "What about the trust?" Daniel slid another document toward her. "We stayed up all night." She opened it. Highlighted paragraphs filled nearly every page. If the marriage had taken place, Daniel explained, Ryan would have gained indirect influence over several investment decisions connected to your family's trust. Sophia slowly looked up. So, he wasn't exaggerating. No. He had already spoken with financial advisors. He had already drafted restructuring proposals. He had already prepared to request additional capital within 90 days of the wedding. The room became very quiet. Daniel finally said the words no one wanted to speak. This was never just infidelity. Sophia closed the folder. It was strategy. At 8 o'clock, the hotel lobby began filling with guests. Luxury cars arrived one after another. Women stepped onto the red carpet wearing elegant pastel dresses and designer hats. Men adjusted tailored tuxedos while greeting old friends. Everyone smiled. Everyone assumed they were attending the wedding of two successful young professionals deeply in love. Ryan Caldwell certainly believed so. He stood in the groom's suite, adjusting his cufflinks. His best man, Ethan Brooks, laughed while scrolling through social media. Wedding of the year is already trending. Ryan smirked. As it should. Another groomsman asked, "Nervous?" Ryan straightened his tie. "About getting married?" He shrugged. "I've closed tougher business deals." The room erupted with laughter. Someone handed him a glass of champagne. One last toast. Ryan raised the glass. "To new beginnings." His phone vibrated. A notification appeared. Hotel operations alert. He frowned. What the? The message disappeared before he could finish reading. Another notification followed immediately. Ballroom access temporarily suspended. Ryan looked confused. There must be some technical issue. Downstairs, Sophia stepped out of a private elevator. Every employee she passed instinctively stood straighter. Some greeted her as Miss Bennet. Others simply nodded with quiet respect. At exactly 8:32 a.m., she stopped beside the concierge desk. Marcus Green approached immediately. The security team is in position. She asked calmly. All entrants? Secured. The ballroom? Restricted access. No guest leaves until legal authorization is given? Marcus nodded. Understood. Sophia handed him a sealed envelope. Deliver this to event services. He glanced at the label. Wedding cancellation notice. Even Marcus, who had seen the recordings only hours earlier, swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. The ballroom doors remained closed. Nearly 400 guests waited outside. Whispers spread rapidly. Is the ceremony delayed? Maybe traffic. I heard the florist had a problem. No, the groom's still upstairs. Confusion slowly replaced excitement. Then every large display screen inside the lobby changed simultaneously. Instead of elegant wedding graphics, a simple message appeared. The Bennett-Caldwell wedding has been cancelled due to personal circumstances. Thank you for your understanding. Further information will follow. Gasps echoed throughout the lobby. What? It can't be cancelled. There must be some mistake. Phones immediately emerged. Within seconds, social media exploded. Ryan burst out of the elevator. What the hell is going on? His tuxedo was immaculate. His confidence was not. He marched toward the ballroom only to find 2 hotel security officers standing before the entrance. I'm the groom. I'm sorry, sir. You'll have to wait. Ryan stared in disbelief. Wait? This is my wedding. One guard remained perfectly professional. Those are our instructions. From who? Neither guard answered. Ryan pushed past them. I don't have time for this. Marcus Green stepped into his path. I'm afraid you do. Ryan recognized him. The head of security? Marcus nodded once. Mr. Caldwell, I'm going inside. I'm afraid you can't. Ryan's patience snapped. Do you have any idea who I am? Before Marcus could answer, another voice echoed across the marble lobby. Yes. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. Sophia Bennet walked slowly toward them. Not in white lace. Not carrying flowers. Not wearing the face of a devastated bride. She wore an ivory business suit that radiated quiet authority. Behind her walked Daniel Mercer, 2 senior attorneys, the hotel's general manager, the director of security, and several members of the executive leadership team. The atmosphere changed instantly. Ryan frowned. Sophia. What is this? She stopped several feet away. Her expression remained calm. Almost unreadable. You should have received the cancellation notice. What cancellation? Our wedding. Ryan laughed nervously. Very funny. No. Her voice was steady. It isn't. He stared at her suit. Why are you dressed like that? Because I'm not here as your bride. A long silence followed. I'm here as the owner of this hotel. Ryan blinked. What? He looked around. Nobody laughed. Nobody corrected her. The general manager stepped beside Sophia. Good morning, Miss Bennet. The executives followed. Good morning, Miss Bennet. One by one. Respectfully. Naturally. As though this had always been true. Ryan slowly turned back toward Sophia. His face drained of color. His voice barely emerged. You own the Grand Bennet? Sophia held his gaze. Yes. The realization struck him like a physical blow. Every surveillance camera. Every security system. Every access log. Every room inside the building. Belonged to her. Then another thought entered his mind. His bachelor party. The laughter. Amber. Capri. The trust fund. His whiskey glass slipped from his hand. It shattered across the polished marble floor. For the first time in nearly 2 years, Ryan Caldwell looked genuinely afraid. And Sophia knew he had finally begun to understand that this morning was never going to be about a wedding. It was going to be about the truth. The conference room on the 32nd floor had never hosted a wedding meeting. It had hosted billion-dollar acquisitions, emergency board sessions, negotiations that determined the future of entire companies. Today, it would witness something far more personal. The walls were lined with dark walnut panels, while floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago skyline. Morning sunlight filtered through motorized shades, leaving the room washed in a muted glow. A long oval table dominated the center, its polished surface reflecting neatly arranged legal folders, bottled water, and digital tablets. Nothing about the room felt emotional. Everything about it felt deliberate. Ryan Caldwell stood near the entrance, still wearing the tuxedo he had expected Sophia to admire only an hour earlier. Instead, it had become a costume from a life that no longer existed. Across the table, Sophia sat quietly in her ivory suit. To her right sat Daniel Mercer, general counsel for Bennett Holdings. Beside him were Olivia Grant, the company's chief legal officer, and Margaret Ellis, Sophia's longtime financial advisor. On Sophia's left sat Charles Bennett, her father, his silver hair neatly combed, his expression unreadable. He had spoken barely a dozen words since arriving that morning. His disappointment was too deep for anger. At the far end of the room, Harold Simmons, chairman of the Grand Bennett Hotel's board, folded his hands together. No one smiled. No one offered congratulations. Ryan looked around, searching for a friendly face. He found none. Daniel broke the silence. "Mr. Caldwell, thank you for joining us." Ryan scoffed. "I didn't exactly have a choice." "No," Daniel replied evenly. "You didn't." Sophia finally spoke. "Please sit." Her tone was calm, professional, almost gentle. Ryan hesitated before lowering himself into the chair opposite her. For a brief moment, he studied her face. No tears. No trembling hands. No mascara streaked across her cheeks. She looked exactly like the woman who negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts. And somehow, that frightened him more than seeing her cry ever could. Ryan forced a smile. "Sophia, whatever this is, we can work through it." No one answered. "I know bachelor parties get out of hand." Still silence. He leaned forward. "I drank too much." Sophia met his eyes. "Did alcohol invent Amber Collins?" Ryan's smile vanished. He looked toward Daniel. "I don't know what you're talking about." Daniel slid a black folder across the table. "You will." Ryan opened it. The first page contained a photograph. Him, kissing Amber in the penthouse hallway. Timestamp: 11,042,022 p.m. Camera 14. His heartbeat quickened. The next photograph showed Amber entering the suite. Then another. Ryan embracing her. Then another. His arm around her waist. The final image froze on the moment he whispered something into her ear before they disappeared into the lounge. Ryan swallowed hard. "You had cameras in the hallway?" Harold Simmons answered. "We have cameras throughout every public area of this hotel." Ryan looked at Sophia. "You watched me?" She shook her head. "No. I was inspecting security operations. I accidentally found you." A painful silence settled over the room. Ryan looked away. Daniel pressed a button on the conference screen. A transcript appeared, not video. Just words. "I'm marrying Sophia because the Bennett money solves everything." Another page. "By this time next year, I'll have access to investors who won't even remember my company almost collapsed." Another. "Amber knows exactly what this is." Another. "Wedding Saturday. Capri in 3 weeks." Ryan's breathing became shallow. Those statements were taken out of context. Were they? Sophia asked quietly. He looked at her desperately. "I was joking." Daniel folded his hands. "Then, perhaps you can explain the financial documents." Margaret Ellis opened another binder. Unlike the transcript, this one contained spreadsheets. Wire transfers. Expense reports. Corporate reimbursements. Invoices. Ryan frowned. "What is this?" Margaret adjusted her glasses. "Records from Caldwell Strategic Solutions." "My company?" "Correct." She turned the first page. 3. Executive retreats billed as investor relations. Another page. Luxury hotel stays. Another. Private flights. Another. Jewelry purchases. She paused. Every one of those expenses was approved under corporate development. Ryan stiffened. So? Margaret looked directly at him. None of the trips involved investors. She slid several photographs across the table. Ryan and Amber in Napa Valley. Ryan and Amber in Miami. Ryan and Amber boarding a yacht in San Diego. All dated. All matching expense reports submitted to his company. Olivia Grant spoke for the first time. The board will be very interested in explaining why shareholder funds financed your affair. Ryan's face paled. Those. He searched for words. Those weren't company trips. Exactly. Olivia nodded. They were personal. And billed as business. Sophia remained silent. She watched Ryan's carefully constructed confidence begin to fracture. Months ago, she might have rushed to defend him. Today, she simply listened. Daniel reached for another folder. This concerns the Bennett family trust. Ryan's eyes widened. What does that have to do with anything? Daniel placed a document before him. An unsigned proposal. Prepared 6 weeks earlier. Across the top, the title read, Post-Marriage Capital Integration Strategy. Ryan stared at it. His mouth slowly opened. No. Sophia spoke softly. We found it on your company's shared server. Ryan immediately looked up. You hacked my system? No. Daniel answered. One of your directors preserved company records after investors raised concerns about liquidity. Another page. Ryan's own notes. Following marriage, approach Sophia regarding expansion financing. Another. Leverage Bennett Network for institutional credit. Another. Family Trust presents long-term capital solution. Ryan felt every pair of eyes fixed upon him. He had imagined those notes were private. Temporary. Just strategic planning. Now they sat exposed beneath bright conference room lights. Charles Bennett finally spoke. His voice was quiet. When you asked for my blessing. Ryan slowly looked toward him. Were you already writing this? Ryan couldn't answer. Charles nodded once. I thought you wanted to marry my daughter. His expression never changed. You wanted access to her. Ryan suddenly pushed back his chair. This is ridiculous. He stood. You've already decided I'm guilty. No, Sophia replied. You decided that. He laughed bitterly. So what now? You ruin my reputation? You destroy my company? Sophia slowly stood as well. For the first time that morning, they stood face to face. Only the width of the conference table separated them. You still don't understand. Ryan frowned. I could play every recording from last night for every guest downstairs. She paused. I won't. His eyes narrowed. I could upload the videos online. Another pause. I won't. Daniel looked toward her, but said nothing. Sophia continued. I don't need strangers humiliating you. Ryan blinked. I need the people responsible for protecting employees, shareholders, and investors to know the truth. She glanced toward the legal team. Nothing more. Nothing less. Ryan searched her face. He expected rage. Hatred. Revenge. Instead, he found something infinitely worse. Disappointment. The kind that never raised its voice. The kind that quietly closed every door forever. Sophia reached into her portfolio and removed a small velvet box. The engagement ring. She placed it carefully on the polished table between them. The soft sound echoed through the silent room. I spent 2 years believing I was building a life with an honest man. Her voice remained steady. I was actually financing a performance. Ryan looked down at the ring. The diamond sparkled under the conference room lights. Hours earlier, it had symbolized a future. Now it looked like evidence. Sophia stepped back. Our engagement is over. She looked toward Daniel. Please provide Mr. Caldwell's attorneys with copies of all relevant materials. Daniel nodded. Already prepared. Ryan's shoulders slumped. For the first time, he realized this was no longer an argument between two people who had loved each other. It had become a legal, financial, and moral reckoning. And every illusion he had spent years constructing was collapsing, not because Sophia had screamed, not because she had sought revenge, but because she had quietly arrived with something far more devastating than anger. She had arrived with the truth. The Grand Bennett Ballroom had been transformed overnight into a dream. White roses climbed crystal columns. Hundreds of floating candles shimmered beneath handcrafted chandeliers imported from Venice. Round tables dressed in ivory linen overlooked panoramic windows framing the Chicago skyline, while a string quartet continued to play out of instinct, uncertain whether they had become musicians at a wedding or witnesses to its funeral. Nearly 400 guests remained inside. Family members, business leaders, judges, philanthropists, longtime family friends. Most of them had already seen the cancellation notice. None of them knew the reason. Whispers floated through the ballroom like restless ghosts. Did someone get sick? I heard Ryan left. Maybe they'll postpone. No. Something's wrong. Across the room, journalists who had been invited to cover what social media had already dubbed Chicago's wedding of the year found themselves politely but firmly escorted away from the ballroom entrance. Hotel security had confiscated no phones and threatened no one. They had simply asked for patience. Safia had one request. No speculation. No public spectacle. Not yet. Behind the ballroom doors, Daniel Mercer approached Sophia. The guests are waiting. She nodded. And Ryan? He'll remain upstairs with his attorney. She was silent for a moment. He asked whether you intended to release the recordings. Sophia looked toward the closed ballroom. What did you tell him? The truth. And that is? Daniel answered quietly. You haven't decided. Sophia gave the faintest shake of her head. I already have. Daniel studied her expression. You aren't going to show them? No. They deserve an explanation. She inhaled slowly. But they don't deserve front row seats to someone else's humiliation. Daniel smiled not because the morning had ended well, but because Sophia had remained exactly the woman she had always been. Heartbroken. Not cruel. At 11 o'clock sharp, the ballroom lights dimmed. The conversations faded. Every eye turned toward the small stage where wedding vows had been scheduled to take place. Instead of a groom waiting beneath an arch of white orchids, only one microphone stood alone. Sophia walked toward it. No bridal gown. No bouquet. Only her ivory suit and a quiet confidence that somehow commanded more attention than any wedding dress ever could. The room fell completely silent. She looked across the sea of familiar faces. Some smiled sadly. Others appeared deeply confused. A few already suspected the truth. Sophia adjusted the microphone. Thank you. Her voice carried gently through the ballroom. For being here today. She paused. I know many of you traveled long distances to celebrate what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. A few guests lowered their eyes. I owe every one of you an explanation. She folded her hands together. This morning, I made the decision to end my engagement to Ryan Caldwell. A ripple moved through the room. Gasps. Soft whispers. Disbelief. Sophia waited until the room settled again. I understand many of you are wondering what happened. Another pause. There was a serious breach of trust. Her words were careful, measured. I discovered information that made it impossible for me, morally and emotionally, to continue with this marriage. No accusations. No dramatic storytelling. No tears. She continued. I will not discuss private details. I will not embarrass another person in front of hundreds of guests. Several people exchanged surprised glances. I believe dignity should not disappear simply because love does. The silence deepened. Sophia looked toward her parents seated in the front row. They raised me to believe that character is revealed not only by how we celebrate joy. She smiled faintly. But by how we respond to disappointment. Her eyes slowly returned to the audience. I choose respect. I choose honesty. And I choose to walk away before making vows I can no longer believe in. No one applauded. Not yet. Many were still absorbing her words. Then an elderly woman near the front quietly stood. She began clapping. Another guest followed. Then another. Within seconds, the ballroom erupted into sustained applause. Not for a wedding. For courage. Several women wiped tears from their cheeks. A retired judge leaned toward his wife. That's one of the strongest speeches I've ever heard. Nearby, a young woman whispered. She could have destroyed him. Her friend nodded. But she didn't. At that moment, sympathy transformed into admiration. Sophia was no longer the abandoned bride. She had become something far more powerful. A woman who refused to sacrifice her integrity even after her heart had been broken. While the applause continued inside the ballroom, another scene unfolded several floors above. Amber Collins stepped out of a guest suite wearing oversized sunglasses despite being indoors. A leather handbag rested on her shoulder. She moved quickly toward the private elevators, glancing behind her twice. She never noticed the security camera tracking every step. Marcus Green watched the monitor inside the security office. Something caught his attention. Amber's handbag appeared unusually full. He pressed the radio clip to his jacket. Unit 3. I'm on my way. Amber had almost reached the hotel exit when Marcus approached. Miss Collins? She froze for half a second before forcing a smile. Yes? I'm sorry. May I speak with you for a moment? I'm actually in a hurry. It won't take long. She adjusted her handbag. I really need to leave. Marcus remained polite. Our records indicate you entered a restricted bridal suite earlier this morning. Amber blinked. So? We're conducting a routine inventory. She laughed nervously. You think I stole something? I didn't say that. Marcus's calmness unsettled her. I simply need to verify a few items. Amber shifted her weight. This is ridiculous. Perhaps. Marcus nodded. Would you mind opening your bag? Her smile disappeared. No. Behind Marcus, two additional security officers quietly approached. Amber noticed them immediately. This is harassment. No, Marcus replied. It's standard procedure. She gripped the handbag tighter. You don't have the right. Daniel Mercer stepped into the lobby. Actually, he held up a document. Under the hotel's security policy and with reasonable cause related to restricted access property, we do. Amber's confidence began to crack. Slowly, reluctantly, she opened the bag. Inside lay makeup, a wallet, sunglasses, a silk scarf. Then, wrapped inside a white hand towel, a velvet jewelry pouch. Marcus carefully removed it. He loosened the drawstring. The entire lobby fell silent. Resting inside was an antique diamond hairpin shaped like intertwining lilies. Every employee recognized it instantly. It had belonged to Sophia's grandmother. It was scheduled to be worn during the wedding ceremony. Amber's face turned white. She swallowed. I was just. Daniel looked at her steadily. Just what? I meant to return it. Marcus glanced toward the security officer. Record the time. The officer nodded. 11:47 a.m. Daniel closed the pouch. I think your attorney will want to hear that explanation. Amber's breathing became uneven. I didn't steal it. No? Daniel asked calmly. Then why was it hidden inside a towel at the bottom of your handbag? She had no answer. Only silence. At almost the exact same moment, Sophia stepped down from the ballroom stage. Guests approached one after another. Some embraced her. Others simply squeezed her hand. No one asked to see the recordings. No one demanded details. Her Grace had answered the questions better than scandal ever could. As Daniel quietly entered the ballroom and whispered what had just happened, Sophia closed her eyes for a brief moment. Another betrayal. Another painful truth. She opened them again. Is the hairpin safe? Daniel nodded. It never left the building. Sophia exhaled softly. Good. Aren't you going to ask about Amber? Sophia looked toward the windows overlooking the city. The law will. She smoothed the sleeve of her blazer before greeting another guest with the same quiet dignity she had shown all morning. Outside, reporters continued gathering behind security barriers, eager for a scandal. Inside, something much rarer had already happened. Without raising her voice, without humiliating the man who had betrayed her, without surrendering to bitterness, Sophia Bennett had proven that the strongest form of revenge was not public destruction. It was walking away with her character completely intact, while everyone else watched deception collapse under the weight of its own choices. 3 days after the canceled wedding, the headlines had changed. At first, every major news outlet had focused on the dramatic image of a bride who never wore white. By Monday morning, however, the story was no longer about a broken engagement. It had become a corporate scandal. Caldwell Strategic Solutions under formal board investigation. Investors demand independent financial review. Questions raised over executive conduct following canceled wedding. Sophia never gave another interview. She declined every request for comment. She refused to release the surveillance footage to the media despite offers that would have made the recording one of the most watched videos on the internet. "The evidence belongs in a courtroom," she told Daniel Mercer. "Not on social media." That single decision changed the public conversation. She was no longer seen as someone seeking revenge. She was seen as someone seeking accountability. On the 24th floor of Caldwell Strategic Solutions, the atmosphere had become almost unrecognizable. Employees who normally chatted over coffee now whispered behind closed office doors. Every unexpected email caused someone to glance nervously toward the executive suite. The elevators seemed quieter, the hallways longer, the uncertainty heavier. Ryan Caldwell walked through the office wearing the same confidence he had always projected. But it no longer fit him. Conversations stopped when he entered a room. People looked away. Others stared a second too long. His executive assistant, Melissa Carter, met him outside his office. "There are 8 board members already in the conference room." Ryan loosened his tie. "They're early." She hesitated. "So are the forensic accountants?" His hand froze on the office door. "Forensic accountants?" Melissa nodded carefully. "They arrived an hour ago." Ryan suddenly understood. This was no routine board meeting. Inside conference room A, 12 people waited. Board members, corporate attorneys, outside auditors, representatives from the company's 2 largest institutional investors. At the far end sat Michael Donovan, the independent investigator hired to oversee the review. He stood as Ryan entered. "Mr. Caldwell." Ryan forced a smile. "Michael. We'll begin immediately." Ryan looked around. "No coffee? No small talk?" Michael didn't smile. "Not today." A thick binder landed in front of Ryan. Across the cover were 4 words. "Executive Expense Review." Ryan opened it. His stomach tightened. The first section listed flights, private jets, luxury hotels, fine dining, spa reservations, wine purchases, designer boutiques. Every receipt had a corresponding approval code. Every approval carried Ryan's electronic signature. Michael began calmly. "Our review started with expenses identified by Bennett Holdings legal counsel." Ryan glanced toward the investigators. "We expanded from there." Another binder appeared. "Travel authorization records." Then another. "Vendor payment analysis." Then another. "Email communications." Ryan suddenly felt as though the table itself were closing around him. The projector illuminated the wall. An email appeared. From Ryan Caldwell. To Chief Financial Officer. Charge the Miami trip to investor relations. No need to list attendees. Michael clicked forward. Another email. Amber should never appear on reimbursement reports. Use Project Horizon instead. Click. Another. We can't afford another quarter without outside capital. Once the wedding is done, liquidity won't be an issue. Ryan's pulse quickened. Those emails are being taken out of context. Michael looked directly at him. "Please explain the context." Ryan hesitated. "They're internal discussions. They're evidence." The investigation continued for 6 hours. Every answer Ryan offered created 2 new questions. Every explanation uncovered another inconsistency. One board member leaned forward. "Mr. Caldwell." Ryan looked exhausted. "Yes? Were shareholders informed that company funds financed personal travel?" "No." "Were they informed that your romantic partner accompanied those trips?" Ryan remained silent. "Were conflict of interest disclosures filed?" Again. Silence. The chairman slowly removed his glasses. "I'll take that as a no." Meanwhile, Daniel Mercer sat inside a quiet conference room at Bennett Holdings. Across from him sat a woman whose confidence had completely disappeared. Amber Collins. She wore no designer clothes today. No expensive jewelry. Only a gray sweater and tired eyes. A criminal defense attorney sat beside her. Amber hadn't slept much. Every news notification felt like another brick falling onto her shoulders. Daniel placed a recorder on the table. "This interview is voluntary." Amber nodded. "I understand. Your attorney has advised you of your rights?" "Yes." Daniel folded his hands. "We're interested in facts." Amber stared at the table. "I never thought it would get this far." "No one ever does." Several long seconds passed. Finally, she whispered. "Ryan said no one would ever know." Daniel remained silent. People often filled silence with truth. Amber did exactly that. It started as an affair. Her voice trembled. He told me the engagement wasn't real. She laughed bitterly. He said Sophia was an investment. Daniel made no comment. Amber continued. He promised he'd leave after securing funding. When? Within a year. She looked toward her attorney. He had everything planned. Daniel slid a legal pad toward her. Tell me. Amber closed her eyes. There were spreadsheets, cash flow forecasts, trust projections. He kept saying the Bennett family connections would solve everything. Daniel wrote carefully. Did he discuss using Sophia's trust? All the time. Were you present? Yes. More than once? Amber nodded. Dozens. Daniel opened another folder. Inside were photographs from Ryan's bachelor party. You attended this event? Yes. Did Ryan tell the guests he intended to continue your relationship after the wedding? Amber looked away. Yes. And the trip to Capri? Her shoulders sagged. It was already booked. She reached into her handbag. I brought something. Daniel watched quietly. Amber removed her cell phone. I never deleted our messages. She placed it on the table. There are texts, voice recordings, emails, travel plans. He wanted me to keep everything. Daniel exchanged a glance with the forensics specialist sitting nearby. This was more than cooperation. This was corroboration. For nearly 4 hours, Amber answered every question. She described false expense reports, hidden calendars, private meetings disguised as investor dinners, gift purchases billed to company accounts. Ryan's repeated assurances that marriage would provide financial protection before anyone discovered the company's growing problems. By the end of the interview, Daniel had filled nearly an entire notebook. Amber looked emotionally drained. Am I going to prison? Daniel answered honestly. I don't know. She nodded slowly. I deserve whatever happens. After a pause, she added quietly. I didn't love him because he lied to Sophia. Daniel looked up. I loved the version of him he pretended to be. For the first time since entering the room, tears escaped her eyes. I don't think that man ever existed. Late that evening, Michael Donovan delivered the preliminary findings to the company's board. No raised voices. No dramatic speeches. Only facts. Misclassified expenses. Undisclosed conflicts of interest. Possible breaches of fiduciary duty. Potential securities violations. Questionable executive reimbursements. Failure to disclose personal relationships influencing financial decisions. The chairman closed the report. We've seen enough. Another director nodded. So have I. A unanimous vote was scheduled for the following morning. Ryan sat alone at the end of the polished boardroom table. No one looked at him. No one defended him. His phone buzzed. A text message. Amber, I'm sorry. I told them everything. Ryan stared at the screen for a long time. He didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Outside the office windows, Chicago carried on as always. Traffic moved. People hurried home. Lights flickered on across the skyline. The city was indifferent to the collapse of one man's carefully constructed life. Ryan finally understood what Sophia had realized the night before their wedding. The recording had never been the thing destroying him. It had simply opened a door. Everything that followed had been built by his own choices, one lie at a time, until the weight of them became too great to carry. And now, with his closest ally turned into the prosecution's strongest witness, the empire he had spent years constructing was beginning to fall not with a single catastrophic crash, but with the quiet, irreversible sound of truth taking its place. Rain fell steadily over Chicago the morning the board reached its final decision. From the floor-to-ceiling windows of Bennett Holdings, the city looked blurred beneath a veil of gray. Cars moved with their headlights on, and pedestrians hurried beneath umbrellas, each person absorbed in the ordinary rhythm of life. Sophia Bennett stood in her office, a mug of untouched coffee growing cold on her desk. Her television was muted. Every news channel carried the same banner. Caldwell's Strategic Solutions Board to announce executive decision. She picked up the remote. Then she set it back down. Whatever happened today would not change the choice she had already made. The hardest decision had never been ending the engagement. It had been refusing to become someone consumed by revenge. A soft knock interrupted the silence. Daniel Mercer stepped inside. "They've requested a brief recess." Sophia looked up. "The board?" He nodded. "They're voting now." She simply acknowledged him with a nod. Daniel hesitated. "There's someone downstairs asking to see you." Sophia frowned. "Who?" He took a slow breath. "Margaret Caldwell. Ryan's mother." 10 minutes later, Sophia entered one of the hotel's private sitting rooms. Margaret Caldwell stood as soon as the door opened. She looked years older than she had only a week earlier. Her elegant navy coat could not hide the exhaustion written across her face. Dark circles framed tearful eyes. She clutched a leather handbag with both hands, as though it were the only thing keeping her steady. "Sophia." Her voice broke. "Thank you for seeing me." Sophia gestured toward the chairs. "Please." They sat across from each other. For several moments, neither woman spoke. Finally, Margaret whispered, "I don't know where to begin." Sophia answered gently, "You don't have to." Margaret shook her head. "No. I do." She lowered her eyes. "I raised Ryan." Another pause. "I keep asking myself where I failed." Sophia remained silent. There were no comforting words large enough for a mother carrying that kind of question. Margaret finally looked up. "I've read some of the evidence." Sophia nodded once. "Then you know why we're here." "I do." Tears gathered again. "But he's still my son." Sophia's expression softened. "I know." Margaret reached across the table. "I'm begging you." The words came out almost as a whisper. "Please withdraw the evidence." Sophia did not move. "His career is over." "I know. Our family name." Margaret stopped, unable to finish the sentence. "Will never recover." The room became painfully quiet. Sophia looked at the woman before her not as Ryan's mother, but as another person living with heartbreak. She understood the grief. She truly did. But understanding was not the same as surrendering. "Sophia." Margaret continued. "He knows he made terrible mistakes. He regrets everything. He loved you." Sophia's eyes remained calm. "If he had loved me." She chose her words carefully. "We wouldn't be having this conversation." Margaret lowered her head. "I know. He says the recordings ruined his life." Sophia leaned back slowly. "No." Her voice was gentle. "They revealed it." Another silence followed. Margaret closed her eyes. "I don't expect you to forgive him." Sophia answered almost immediately. "Forgiveness is personal." She paused. "But accountability is public." Margaret looked confused. Sophia continued. "I may someday forgive Ryan. That's between him, me, and God." She folded her hands together. "But I cannot ask investors to ignore financial misconduct. I cannot ask employees to pretend corporate funds weren't abused. I cannot ask shareholders to overlook deception simply because the person responsible is someone I once loved." Every sentence landed softly. Without anger. Without cruelty. Yet impossible to argue with. Margaret slowly began to cry. "You've become stronger than I ever imagined." Sophia's own eyes glistened. "I didn't want to." Across the city, the board meeting resumed. Ryan sat alone at one end of the polished conference table. The chair beside him remained empty. His attorney quietly organized documents. No colleagues offered encouraging smiles. No executives whispered strategy. Those who had once praised his leadership now avoided eye contact. The chairman adjusted the microphone. "Mr. Caldwell." Ryan looked up. "The investigation has concluded." He already knew. Still, hearing the words would make them real. The chairman continued. "After reviewing the independent forensic audit, witness testimony, expense records, electronic communications, and legal findings." He glanced briefly toward the other directors. "The board of directors has reached a unanimous decision." Every person in the room became still. "You are hereby removed as Chief Executive Officer of Caldwell Strategic Solutions, effective immediately." Ryan didn't react. He simply stared ahead. "You are further removed from all executive authority. Your enhanced voting shares are revoked in accordance with the company's governance provisions. Your executive compensation package is terminated. Pending additional regulatory review, all separation benefits are suspended." Each sentence stripped away another piece of the life Ryan had spent years building. Finally, the chairman spoke the last line. Security will escort you from the building. No applause. No celebration. Only silence. Ryan slowly removed the company identification badge clipped to his jacket. He placed it carefully on the conference table. For years, employees had stepped aside when they saw him coming. Today, no one stood. Outside headquarters, reporters crowded behind barricades. Camera flashes erupted the moment Ryan exited the building. Mr. Caldwell, do you have a statement? Did you misuse shareholder funds? Is Amber Collins cooperating with investigators? Did you intend to manipulate the Bennett family trust? Questions flew toward him from every direction. Ryan lowered his head. He said nothing. A black sedan pulled away from the curb without him. His company car had already been reassigned. Even the driver who had worked beside him for 6 years offered only a sympathetic nod before closing the door. Ryan stood alone on the sidewalk. For the first time in a decade, he had nowhere he was expected to be. That evening, social media filled with opinions. Some mocked him. Others defended him. Many debated whether the consequences had gone too far. Sophia ignored every headline. Instead, she visited the Grand Bennett Hotel. Employees greeted her warmly. Housekeepers smiled. Concierges thanked her for protecting the hotel's reputation. One young receptionist stopped her near the lobby. Miss Bennett? Sophia smiled. Yes? The woman hesitated. I just wanted to say. Her voice trembled slightly. Thank you. Sophia looked surprised. For what? My father lost his retirement because his CEO stole from the company he worked for. The receptionist swallowed. You reminded me that powerful people should answer for what they do. Sophia felt a lump rise in her throat. The young woman smiled through watery eyes. You didn't destroy his company. You protected everyone who didn't deserve to suffer. After she walked away, Daniel quietly joined Sophia. You've been thinking. She nodded. I keep wondering whether there was another way. Daniel looked across the elegant lobby. There wasn't. She exhaled slowly. I never wanted Ryan to lose everything. Daniel answered gently. He didn't. Sophia turned toward him. He still has something. What? The opportunity to become an honest man. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The clouds began to separate, allowing a narrow band of evening sunlight to break across the Chicago skyline. Sophia watched its reflection shimmer across the hotel's glass facade. Justice, she realized, was often mistaken for vengeance. But they were not the same. Vengeance sought to make another person suffer. Justice simply refused to let wrongdoing hide behind charm, wealth, or love. Ryan had lost his position, his influence, his carefully cultivated reputation. Not because Sophia hated him, but because she loved herself enough to tell the truth and respected everyone else enough to let the truth carry its own weight. 6 weeks later, autumn had quietly arrived in Chicago. The city wore a different rhythm now. The trees lining Michigan Avenue had begun exchanging their summer green for shades of amber and crimson. Morning air carried the crisp scent of approaching winter, and the Grand Bennett Hotel continued welcoming guests as though nothing extraordinary had happened there. Weddings filled the ballroom again. Business conferences returned. Families celebrated anniversaries. Life, as it always did, moved forward. So did Sophia Bennett. The canceled wedding was no longer the first thing people associated with her. Instead, newspapers had begun using different headlines. Hotel heiress praised for ethical leadership. Sophia Bennett protects employees during corporate fallout, choosing integrity over revenge. She never asked for the attention. She simply refused to let pain become the loudest chapter of her life. One Thursday morning, Sophia arrived at the studios of Good Morning America for her first and only national television interview. She had declined dozens of invitations before finally accepting this one. Not because she wanted to tell the world about Ryan. Because she wanted to speak to people who might recognize themselves in her story before it was too late. The producer adjusted her microphone. We're live in 30 seconds. Sophia smiled politely. I'm ready. Across the studio, host Diane Mitchell welcomed viewers. Today, we're joined by entrepreneur and hotel owner Sophia Bennett. The nation watched headlines surrounding her canceled wedding. But today's conversation isn't about gossip. It's about trust, manipulation, and choosing self-respect. The cameras turned. The interview began. Diane smiled warmly. Thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me. The first few questions focused on Sophia's business, her charitable foundation, the future of the Grand Bennett Hotel. Only then did Diane gently shift the conversation. Millions of people wondered why you never released the recordings publicly. Sophia paused thoughtfully. Because humiliation isn't justice. The studio became very quiet. She continued. If someone hurts us, it's natural to want everyone else to see what we saw. But public shame rarely heals private wounds. Diane nodded. So why preserve the evidence? Sophia answered without hesitation. Because evidence protects innocent people. It protects employees, shareholders, families. Truth should exist where decisions are made. She smiled softly. Not where strangers are looking for entertainment. The interview moved deeper. What hurt the most? Diane asked gently. The affair? Sophia looked down for a brief moment before answering. No. She lifted her eyes again. The affair was painful. But it wasn't the deepest wound. Diane waited. Sophia's voice remained steady. The deepest wound was realizing the man I loved never saw marriage as a promise. He saw it as a financial strategy. She paused. I could have forgiven someone who fell out of love. I couldn't marry someone who treated commitment like an investment opportunity. Across America, millions of viewers watched in complete silence. Some women wiped tears from their faces. Others quietly reached for their phones. Within minutes, social media filled with messages. I needed to hear this. Thank you for reminding women that leaving isn't failure. She chose herself before it was too late. Over the following days, thousands of letters arrived at Bennett Holdings. Some came from wives. Others from daughters. Some from men who admitted they had ignored emotional manipulation inside their own relationships. One handwritten letter stood out. It came from a woman in Ohio. I was supposed to marry someone next month. After watching your interview, I finally admitted to myself that I had spent 2 years making excuses for someone who never respected me. You didn't save my relationship. You saved me from the wrong one. Sophia folded the letter carefully. For the first time in weeks, she cried. Not because she still mourned Ryan. Because pain, when spoken honestly, had somehow become hope for someone else. Across the city, Ryan Caldwell lived in a small apartment overlooking a busy intersection. His penthouse had been sold. His company-issued car was gone. His calendar remained empty. Every morning looked the same. Coffee. Job applications. Lawyers. Silence. One afternoon, he sat at the small kitchen table, scrolling through old news articles. Most comments were cruel. Some defended him. A few simply expressed disappointment. Then he found something unexpected. A replay of Sophia's interview. He almost closed it. Instead, he watched. Every minute. She never insulted him. Never mocked him. Never celebrated his downfall. When the interview ended, Ryan remained staring at the blank television screen. His own reflection looked back at him. He suddenly remembered the words he had spoken during the bachelor party. I can't believe I'm stuck with her for life. At the time, everyone had laughed. Now, those words echoed inside the quiet apartment. Not as a joke, as a confession. He finally understood something he had spent weeks blaming everyone else for. The recording had not ruined him. The investigation had not created him. Sophia had not invented a false image. The camera had simply captured the version of himself he believed no one would ever see. For the first time in his adult life, Ryan stopped searching for someone else to blame. He whispered into the empty room. I did this. There was no audience. No lawyer. No board. Only the truth. It was both the hardest sentence he had ever spoken. And the first honest one. Late that afternoon, Sophia returned to the house she had once planned to share with Ryan. Most of his belongings had already been collected weeks earlier. The rooms echoed with unfamiliar quiet. She climbed the staircase and opened the door to the dressing room. The wedding gown still waited exactly where she had left it. Untouched. Perfect. A reminder of a future that had never arrived. She approached it slowly. Running her fingertips across the delicate lace, she smiled with quiet sadness. You weren't wasted, she whispered. You simply belong to a story that never happened. Instead of throwing the dress away, instead of burning it, instead of donating it in anger, she carefully removed it from the mannequin. She folded each layer of silk by hand. Every piece of lace, every ribbon, every pearl. When she finished, she placed it inside an archival preservation box lined with acid-free tissue. A small brass plaque rested on the lid. She picked up a pen and wrote only one sentence. A future I was brave enough not to choose. She closed the lid gently. No tears fell. Not anymore. The dress was never a symbol of failure. It was evidence of a decision that had saved her life before it was built on a lie. Sophia carried the box into a climate-controlled storage room at the back of the house. She placed it carefully on the highest shelf. Then she switched off the light and closed the door. Outside, the evening sun slipped behind the Chicago skyline, casting long shadows across the quiet neighborhood. Sophia stood on the front porch for a moment, breathing in the cool autumn air. Her engagement had ended. Her wedding had never begun. She had lost the man she thought she loved. But she had found something far more valuable. Not wealth. Not influence. Not public admiration. She had found the one thing no betrayal could ever take from her again. The courage to choose herself. And as she walked down the front steps toward the life waiting beyond that unfinished chapter, she understood a truth that would remain with her long after the headlines disappeared. Sometimes the greatest love story is not about finding the right person. Sometimes it is about refusing to lose yourself to the wrong one.